Human error. It's not exactly a new concept. I'm sure we're all aware of small mistakes that we make every single day. Some of these mistakes maybe are typos that we make while we're typing out a paper. Or perhaps we forget to write something on the grocery list. Some mistakes that we make are of much higher danger, like forgetting to stop at a stop sign or running a red light. Those could cause injury or worse. However, of all the mistakes that we make in our lives, whether those grave life or death mistakes or even those small little mistakes that don't really matter, math isn't real involved. But that was different in the 19th century. As I mentioned a few weeks ago in my video on Halley's Comet, human computers calculated complex mathematical equations that were published in guides and almanacs. These equations and tables were used and helped in farming, exploration and research, and navigation, especially nautical navigation on the high seas. However, since these tables were completed by humans, and those humans were often prone to error, mistakes often made their way into these well-known complex equations and guides. When these mistakes were used by ships navigating on the seas, they often resulted in ships navigating miles off course. For the sailors on board, this could become a grave life or death situation. In 1822, one man decided it was time for a solution. He envisioned a mechanical machine similar to the Antitheta mechanism discussed months ago that could compute these complex mathematical equations perfectly every single time. The inventor was Charles Babbage, and his invention was the difference engine. Charles Babbage was born into a wealthy family in 1791. His father was often considered a bully, perhaps pushing Charles to aim higher and achieve better and better goals. Charles attended the University of Cambridge and quickly became a brilliant mathematician, jumping light years ahead of some of his professors. Babbage became an inventor, and unlike many inventors today, Babbage was multidisciplinary. His inventions range from the time clock speedometers and even the locomotive cowcatcher on the front of many trains at the time. However, of all the inventions that Charles Babbage invented, he will put his stamp on history as a computer pioneer. His first venture into the invention of computing was the difference engine, the world's first fully automatic digital calculating computer ever created. Charles Babbage envisioned his difference engine to be a mechanical device that could calculate complex mathematical equations with ease. Their use for these equations would be primarily nautical navigation and astronomical discovery. Every calculation made by the difference engine would be 100% free from error, from humans or even by the mechanical mechanism itself. Every problem completed on the difference engine was going to be correct every single time. This was a lofty goal. But, as I'm sure you've seen, Babbage was no stranger to aiming towards high and nearly impossible goals. So he set about to design his machine. Now, the difference engine is built on a mathematical principle known as the method of difference, and it's used primarily to solve polynomial functions. Now, I'll be the first to admit, I'm not a mathematician, so I'm not going to try to explain exactly how this mathematical concept worked. I don't want to confuse you with a concept I don't fully understand myself. I'll drop some links down below of some real mathematicians explaining this concept, and if you're interested, I invite you to check those out. Just know that the difference engine operated on discrete digits, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the differences between those, making it a digital device. This was the first digital mechanical calculating machine ever dreamed up. And unlike some upcoming inventions, the difference engine didn't operate on binary digits like many of our modern computers, but on those discrete digits or base 10 numbering systems, 0 through 9. Such a machine was to be incredibly complex, built from over 25,000 individual gears, camshafts, wheels, pulleys, and many, many more mechanical parts. The machine was to weigh over 4 tons, stretch over 11 feet long, and stand over 8 feet tall. An operator would enter the starting values of the equation on a set of columned gears. So down, they would twist gears down a shaft as the starting number to start the equation. Then they would turn the crank once. After one revolution of the crank, the problem would be solved. The output would be displayed on another column at the other end of the machine with those rotating gears with numbers on them. Amazingly, the difference engine was also an automatic calculator, meaning that it could store the result of one equation and use it as an input for another equation. So to translate this to modern computers, it would be like storing a number in RAM. The difference engine was a behemoth, but so was the budget, which became a problem. Charles Babbage began by appealing to the British government for funding. In one of the first government grants ever for research, the British Crown agreed, and Babbage had his money. The next step was to find a skilled mechanic that could make the intricate parts that the difference engine required. Babbage himself didn't possess these skills, and to make matters worse, at the time, no formal process existed for making these kinds of intricate gears and mechanical parts. Eventually, Babbage found engineer Joseph Clement, who agreed to build the difference engine according to Babbage's plans. Charles Babbage even prepared for the construction of the device by building a dust-proof and fireproof workshop environment in which to test and build the difference engine. But the construction process was plagued with problems. Babbage kept running out of funding due to a ill-defined contract with the British government, and the device proved even more difficult to produce and build than originally figured. Eventually, the inevitable happened. In 1832, 10 years after Babbage had conceived the design, Joseph Clement refused to continue construction until he was provided additional pay. 10 years later, in 1842, the British government officially cut funding for the difference engine. In short, the project had failed. However, right down there near the end of the project in 1840, Babbage began plans on difference engine number 2. This new device would be able to compute numbers far larger than difference engine number 1, and it was made from many, many fewer parts. Unfortunately, due to the same issues, difference engine number 2 was never completed. Many concluded that Charles Babbage was simply too far ahead of his time, that the device that he envisioned was simply not technologically possible to even build. A biographer, Anthony Hyman, remarked on Babbage saying this: Babbage worked by himself, far ahead of contemporary thought. He had not only to elaborate the designs, but to develop the concepts, the engineering, and even the tools to make the parts. He stands alone, the great ancestral figure of computing. Charles Babbage died in 1871 without ever seeing any of his difference engines produced or functionally work in any way. Now, one would think that this spelled doom for the difference engine project, but surprisingly, that's not the case. In 1985, the curator for the London Science Museum held plans for Charles Babbage's difference engine. Given that the device was never actually completed, the curator wondered, if such a device was built, would it actually work? Was it free from error? Well, there's only one way to find out. After a round of funding, very much similar to Charles Babbage's own journey 130 years prior, the calculation half of the difference engine was completed in 1991, just in time for Charles Babbage's 200th birthday. Although this modern recreation could compute, it wasn't finished, at least according to Babbage's original plans. Charles Babbage, when he was designing the difference engine, went to extraordinary lengths to ensure that it was free from error, even human error. The result of the calculation was displayed at the end of the calculation half of the machine on a shaft column of gears displaying numbers. That calculation was 100% correct 100% of the time. However, if a human transferred that number to paper, that human could introduce errors. Maybe they could reverse digits, leave a digit out, add an extra digit. So Babbage went to an extra length to ensure that there was no human error introduced into his perfect calculation. He added a printing press side of the machine. It would print the result on paper using a process similar to the printing press, such that that could be torn off like a receipt and used as record of the calculation. But it would even stamp the calculation into a soft material maybe like plaster of Paris, which could be used to form a stamp for a lead stereotype that could be used to transfer to paper. If this was transferred to paper, it could be transferred to paper multiple times without ever having a human write, change, or alter the number in any way. So to go back to that difference engine being built by the London Science Museum, they wanted to complete this machine, complete with that printing half to ensure that the machine was error-free. But the funding was running low. Sounds kind of like Charles Babbage's own situation. But a generous benefactor, Nathan Myhrvold, CTO, Chief Technology Officer at Microsoft, offered to fund the completion of the device. But he had one condition. If he helped the London Science Museum finish the construction of Difference Engine Serial 1, he wanted a Difference Engine Serial 2 built for him for his private collection. The museum agreed, and that Difference Engine Serial 1 was completed in 2002. Nathan Myhrvold's private collection piece, Difference Engine Serial 2, was completed in 2008. All in, it took 17 years to finish one device from plans to the first calculation. But the device worked. Unless the device was broken or otherwise jammed, it produced the correct answer 100% of the time. The difference engine that Charles Babbage had invented worked flawlessly. The difference engine is truly an amazing machine. Many of its pieces can even translate to pieces in our modern computers. Even many of our smartphones contain some of these same pieces, albeit much, much smaller and much less mechanical, but the function is still there. To me, it's just fascinating that a device invented over 150 years ago is still very much influencing and shaping our technology today. The difference engine is the 14th major milestone in the history of computing. If you're interested in learning more about the difference engine, I'd encourage you to start by reading my blog that will accompany this video on Medium. That link is down below. Then consider watching many of the videos I link below. I'll specifically link a video from the Computer History Museum where a volunteer was explaining how the device actually functioned. You can watch Nathan's Difference Engine Serial 2 actually operate. And if you're interested in the mathematical principles that allow the device to function, I'll link a video for that as well down below in the description. So I invite you to check those out. Thank you again for subscribing. I can't build this channel without subscriptions. So if you haven't subscribed, please hit that big red button and consider clicking the bell icon so that you will never miss another video. I encourage you to follow me on social media. I'm active daily on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm even talking about this day in computing history. I upload an interesting little tidbit out of the archives of computer history. I find it fascinating, so follow me over there. And speaking of social media, I'd invite you to share one of my videos. That's really the only way I'm going to grow this channel. And I want more people to learn, first, how technology is a tool, how we can use it. And second, I want people to see the fascinating history of the technology we use every day. I'm hoping at the end of this journey, we'll be able to sit down and have some conversations about what does the history of technology influence today. But that all depends on you sharing this video. So please share this video with a friend or maybe your favorite video from my channel. Also, remember that I am a writer on Medium. Every single week, I will publish a piece on Medium that accompanies the video. So if you truly want to see everything I'm producing, I encourage you to follow me on Medium and subscribe here on YouTube. I would really appreciate it. All right, guys, thanks again for watching. Next week, we're going to take a short break from computing history. I'm going to introduce a new series I'm calling the Binary Series. That will be premiering next week right here on YouTube. And in it, we're going to be celebrating one of my favorite holidays. I'm sure you can guess which one that is. The following week, July 11th, we'll be returning to more history of computing. But technology will always be here, and every video is going to be just as interesting, or at least that's the goal. All right, guys, if you are interested in the history of computing, click right over here for another video on my channel. Or if you're interested in technology in general, click over here. Can't wait to see you guys next week. See you then. Bye.